What's up, guys? Danny here from the Lazarcast, and we are finishing up our Midnight Mass review series. The show came out at the end of September, and instead of binge watching it like crazy, we decided to take it slow and to try to give it the respect that it deserves. I want to show off before we get started. I'm rocking this brand new Kate Siegel Rules t-shirt that I got from ka-tet19.net. I'm not being paid. We're not being sponsored by them, but I just love this shirt. I bought 3 different shirts from that site, along with this one, along with a hoodie for my wife that I put away for Christmas. So if you watch this video, don't tell her about that. So yeah, if you like Mike Flanagan and you like Stephen King and the Gunslinger series, the Dark Tower series, they're a great site with some great merch and great shirts. Midnight Mass. I said that episodes 4 and 5 were my 2 favorite of the series. I just rewatched episodes 6 and 7 before I did this review. The first time I watched episode 7, I kind of just lost it, and I laid in bed and I cried for probably 15 minutes. And I just finished watching episode 7 again, and my daughter came in, Charlotte came in, and the tears were like down to here. And she just looked at me and she said, "Why do you watch this?" And I thought it was so funny, hearing an almost 11-year-old, asking, why would you watch this series that draws you in so emotionally and connects you to these characters and makes you feel, to her. We had a rough day. We actually went to a wake today for somebody, a beloved family friend, and so there's a lot of emotion going on in my home. So I guess to somebody who's in 6th grade, it doesn't make sense to watch something that makes you sad or teary-eyed, but it just speaks to the level of the quality that Mike Flanagan brings to his work. I can honestly say that Dr. Sleep, Before I Wake, oh my God, Before I Wake, I was not expecting that movie to be what it was, and that movie hits really hard if unless you know what it's about going in. No spoilers on that. We are going to cover that on this channel at some point. But Dr. Sleep has moments that made me tear up. Obviously, The Haunting of Hill House and Bly Manor had moments like that as well. I can't think of anyone whose filmography and whose career, because obviously 3 of his, Hill House, Bly Manor, and Midnight Mass, they're not movies, but I can't think of anybody whose work has absolutely... Will you stop it? Cats. I can't think of anybody whose work has continuously just wrung this emotion out of me. So we're going to finish up episodes 6 and 7 of this series on Netflix. And again, we're going to do spoilers if you have not watched episodes 6 and 7. Cat, get out of here. Sorry about that. Will you stop it? Cats, can't live with them. No. Yeah, there we go. Got her over there. Sorry about that. Episode 6 is called Book 6, Acts of the Apostles. And this, obviously, it opens coming off of the epic conclusion to episode 5, which was Riley bursting into flames on the boat with Erin, and Kate Siegel opens the episode just on this boat, covered in ashes from Riley. I want to just point out this episode was written by Mike Flanagan with his brother James Flanagan and also his longtime collaborator Jeff Howard. You are a bad cat. It's driving me crazy. There's this great scene where she goes to Dr. Gunning, played by Annabeth Gish, and she tells her everything, and she says, I have to be crazy, right? Tell me I'm crazy. And she goes, well, if you think you're crazy, let me show you crazy. And she brings her into her lab and shows her that when she puts her mother's blood in the sun, it goes up in flames. And then she turns, and almost like she's breaking the fourth wall. I love the way she does this. She just looks and goes, fucking bonkers. And her and her mother, played by Alex Iso, and Erin, Kate Siegel, they're talking about how there's this blood disorder called EPP, and she says those myths are all based on this. And when she says those myths, I think she's talking about, all the vampire myths. And again, the V word never gets spoken in this series. And in fact, later in this episode at the church, we get this obvious reveal. And I think the reason that the V word is never spoken is because to Mike Flanagan, on this island, this is not a vampire. I think the first time I watched the series, I was a little like, oh, come on, this is vampires. It's 100% it has every vampire trope, but we're just not calling it that. Rewatching it for the purpose of these reviews, I realized that the reason he doesn't use the word vampire and the reason nobody brings up the word vampire is because it's not. This is, in the lore of this show, an angel who he discovered in the Middle East and who he brought back with him. And, there's biblical attachments to everything that happens. This is an angel. And this whole episode, which, like most of this series, is full of, great acting, great writing, some incredible monologues. We get this epic monologue from Rahul Kohli in this episode. Basically, why am I on this island? What got me, a Muslim man, and my son to this remote offshore island? And he tells Dr. Gunning this whole story about, how after 9/11, he wanted to show his love for the country by joining the NYPD, and he worked himself up into the anti-terrorism units. But when he started to get suspicious of some kind of not so secret racism towards Muslims in the NYPD, and he filed one small complaint, it just knocked all the dominoes down, and he felt that they were after him. And it's this great monologue, and it's almost as if Mike Flanagan lets everyone have a turn. He's relied on some of these actors for so long. Obviously Kate Siegel, of course, but Rahul Kohli was unbelievable as Owen in The Haunting of Bly Manor. My wife and I used to watch iZombie, and I loved him on that show. But as Owen on Bly Manor, I fell in love with this man as an actor. And he's also a great Twitter follow. If you haven't followed him on Twitter, he's great. But, it's almost like you were great on that show, you've been great on this show, and now I'm going to write you, a monologue to really give you, and he, in these last two episodes, he gets so much, and he's great. He has such a wide range of emotion for him. We also get some great scenes for Annabeth Gish, who was also in Haunting of Hill House. We get good stuff. Samantha Slayan, who was brutally stabbed to death in Hush back in 2016. She gets, so many just epic, I call them, the Miss Carmody moments, as the, religious, zealot, the fanatic of all fanatics, as Bev Keane. So, also an unspoken character on this show that I want to shout out, Matt Beedle, I believe his name is pronounced, or Beedle. He plays Sturge, the man of the massive beard, who becomes almost like the first lieutenant of Bev Keane, the first lieutenant of Father Paul, or Monsignor Pruitt, and he's fantastic. And I don't think enough people shout him out. This whole episode, we're building where things are happening, where Sturge and Bev Keane and all of the zealots following Monsignor, I just said his name before, Father Paul, Monsignor Pruitt, they are sabotaging the island now. They're cutting off the power, making it into a blackout situation. They're cutting off the phone lines. They've called off the ferry from coming. So they're effectively cut off. And there's this great scene where Bev and Lisa lead the candlelight walk to the church for the Easter midnight mass. As Charlotte walks by and gives me a smile that I really needed. And they're going to the Easter Mass, the Easter Midnight Mass, the titular Mass. And the last 20 minutes of episode 6 is just, if you were sitting there and you were thinking that this show is too monologue-y and it's not enough scares and there's not enough tension, the last 20 minutes of episode 6, where Father Paul, Hamish Linklater, goes into another phenomenal sermon and celebrating the resurrection. And to celebrate the resurrection, the fact that everyone has the blood of the angel in them, they effectively are going to Jonestown, this island now. And they give out cups of poison. Sturge sacrifices himself first, drinks it, and dies. And as everyone starts to get fearful, Kate, Siegel, Erin, Dr. Gunning, and her mother are in the church, knowing that they have to get everybody out. Sheriff Hassan is there because he followed his son. He's trying to get people out of there. And as this happens, the angel appears to everyone. And this is where I stopped referring to this as a vampire show. Because if he was a vampire, he wouldn't be dressed in church garb. He wouldn't be there in the Church of God, there to celebrate the resurrection on Easter at midnight mass. This is, according to this show, an angel. Yes, he looks like a vampire that you've seen in probably other vampire shows and movies. Yes, everything that's happening to the people on the island is in tune with vampire lore, but for this show, this is an angel. And this is how an angel saves you. And we get this great resurrection. Sturge pops back up, and everyone seeing the miracle in front of them, seeing the angel wings spread in the church, start drinking the poison. They start dying. They start coming back to life, and they start craving blood. And you end up with this 20-minute mass craziness in the church, blood everywhere, women, children, everybody's dying. And it ends with we head into episode 7, which appropriately is called Book 7 Revelations. And Alex Esso's character, who we find out, Dr. Gunning's mother, we find out Alex Esso was wearing loads and loads of makeup to make herself look old, and she was losing, she was completely on her last legs at the beginning of this series. She's now, because she's had so much of the blood, she's now back to almost her younger self. We find out that Monsignor Pruitt is Sarah, Dr. Gunning's father. There was actually a scene earlier, I think it was episode 4, where Joe Colley jokes to Monsignor Pruitt, not knowing it's Monsignor Pruitt, thinking he's still Father Paul, saying, oh, there were rumors about him that he used to get around and sleep with women on the island. And it turns out he did one time, that he was in love with her and they had a baby, and that, he hid that from her. And she, in this chaos, to end episode 6, grabbed the gun and shot him in the head. And of course he doesn't die because he's got the blood of the angel inside of him. But this leads to him opening episode 7, sitting alone in this bloody church. And he has the realization that basically everything he's done was for her and for his daughter. He thought that he can overcome death, and by overcoming death, he can bring this angel back to the island and save everyone. And he realizes now, as the town is plummeting into chaos, that he's done fucked up. And the survivors of the church, the only ones who have made it out, are pretty much Aaron, Sarah, Sheriff Hassan, Warren and Lisa, and Warren's mom, Riley's mom. Warren, of course, is Riley's younger brother, and that's it. Everyone else has either been killed or resurrected, and when they're killed, a lot of the resurrected are now resurrecting them. And Bev Keene's whole plan is basically, now that everyone is turned, everyone is resurrected, if it's easier to think about it, vampiric, that they're going to sleep eventually. After they're done feeding and after they're done turning everyone on the island, they're going to sleep, and then when the sun goes down again, they're going to use their boats to sail to the mainland to convert the world and bring the message to the masses, so to speak. And the survivors, this crew of survivors, effectively become like Kurt Russell in The Thing. In fact, Erin, Kate Siegel, in like a real R.J. McCready moment, says, we have to bring the whole place down. We have to prevent them from getting off this island. It's not about us anymore. It's about saving the rest of humanity. And they basically realize they're not all going to make it. In fact, they're probably all going to die. But they need to prevent these resurrected from getting off the island. And so they're able to sneak away. Aaron, Sarah, and Sheriff Hassan they find the gas pump, and they're able to fill up a bunch of jugs with gasoline. They take them down to the docks, and they light all the boats on fire. Bev Keane, of course, in her infinite zealotry, set fire to a house, and Sturge even says to her, with the way the wind is blowing, this fire is going to spread. And she's confident, well, she has the church and she has the rec center. That's all they need for the chosen ones to spend their last night or their last day out of the sun in the rec center or in the church where they can be safe before they leave the island. And, you know, the long story short is, with the exception, again, the spoilers for the end, but with the exception of Warren and Lisa, the two teenagers who find a rowboat and sail out into the water, every one of the survivors of the church massacre is going to die. Sheriff Hassan pours gasoline on the rec center. He's shot by Bev Keane. He has a great line where he quotes a Bible verse to her about the sun rising on the evil. And she shoots him again, and his son ends up lighting the rec center on fire and carrying him, and they end up on the beach praying one last time before the sun rises. Erin is swooped up by the angel, and she's being bitten, and she's being effectively killed, and she, in her last bit of life, is able to stab and slice through the angel's wings so that he can't fly away. And so we see the angel trying to fly away, but Warren and Lisa even say he's probably not going to make it 30 miles on busted wings, and the sun's going to come up, and that's going to be the end of the angel. And in fact, we get some clarity on that at the end, which I'll get to, but we have this phenomenal moment where Hamish Linklater, Monsignor Pruitt, marches back into the church to try to save whoever's left after he's finally broken away from Bev Keane, and he finds his daughter, Sarah, Dr. Gunning, pouring gasoline all over, and he just looks at her, and he's so proud of her, and he tells her he loves her, and he wishes that he could have spent more time with her. And as he's about to light the church on fire, Sturge runs over, sees her, and shoots her. And so him and Alex Iso, they bring their daughter, to this spot that she loved as a kid, and they stay there together, waiting for the sun to come up. Riley and Warren's parents, they start, as the realization to everybody, now that everything is on fire and there's no place to go and there's no place to hide, the realization that this is the end, when the sun comes up, they begin to sing hymns of joy and celebration. And it really, what I love the most about the ending, and again, I've said this on this channel, I'm not a religious person, but I would love to have faith. And I think having faith is a great thing. And that ending of all of these people led astray by the evil of Bev Keane, they are religious people. They are truly devout people who are good people, and they have a true faith. And they were led astray, but they realize at the end to be happy. Riley's mom has this great line about how everybody always says, heaven is waiting for us, heaven is waiting, but then instead of dying, they always fight for just a little bit more life. And you should be happy, you should be accepting of death because heaven is waiting. And it's that feeling at the end. And it's just something about this moment where everyone is at the same time dying, but in a way being resurrected, that all the emotion in me comes out. I've watched this episode twice. I've cried both times. I love this episode. Erin gets one last, as she's laying there dying, we kind of revert back to her and Riley on the couch talking about what happens when you die. And it's this great little closeout for her character. And yeah. And then, so the final image as the sun rises and the singing stops, Lisa turns to Warren and says, "I can't feel my legs." And to me, that is the definitive proof that this was no vampire story. That yes, everything about the angel was vampire lore. We get it. But this was an angel, or how Mike Flanagan was representing angels as like this, they can provide miracles, but they take something from you. And they become almost like this, a curse more than a miracle. And to me, it signifies, there's this scene right at the end where it looks as if it's raining ash on the boat that Warren and Lisa are in. And to me, that's the angel burning up in the sunlight. And she can't feel her legs because the giver of her miracle has just died. And you can see, speaking of miracles from the sky, my cat is climbing down now off of my bookshelf. I can't say enough wonderful things about this series, about the writing, about the acting, the tour de force acting. If there is it's just criminal. Whoa. That cat. It would be criminal if Hamish Linklater and Kate Siegel and Rahul Kohli and Samantha Sloyan, if they don't get any recognition, mainstream recognition for this show, like there are the Saturn Awards and the Chainsaw Awards for horror, but if they don't get mainstream Emmy nominations, if this show doesn't get writing nominations, if Mike Flanagan doesn't get recognized after a third consecutive just brilliant show on Netflix, then I don't know. But you know what? We're used to that as horror fans. We're used to not getting recognized mainstream, and we have to deal with it and love it anyway, and we do. And like I said earlier, nobody has provided more quality programming, more quality movies and TV shows that combine jaw-dropping horror, moments of pure terror and fear, and raw, genuine emotion than Mike Flanagan. And he's done it from his first film, Absentia, all the way through Midnight Mass. This was his magnum opus. Also, if you get a chance, go and find his essay, his like personal story that he wrote for Bloody Disgusting. I think it's Bloody Disgusting, where he basically talks about all of the inspiration that this story comes from his childhood. And he talks about how Riley was a not so secretive version of himself, and his conflicts with the church and religion and his own alcohol issues. It's a wonderful article. It's incredibly worth checking out, and everybody should watch this series. It's absolutely fantastic. How do I rank this, Hill House and Bly Manor? I don't know. I think if you are looking for scares, pure scares, the best of the best series in terms of horror and scariness is The Haunting of Hill House. And I think that's why a lot of people still hold that as kind of like his magnum opus. If you're looking for the best character work, I'm going to go with Bly Manor, because I loved every character on that show. I thought They were from Flora, perfectly splendid, to Owen, to Hannah Grace, to Danny and Jamie. I loved every character on that show so much. And if you want tension and emotion, then I think it's Midnight Mass. I think each show is different in their own way while sharing obvious connecting tissues because of their creator. And they're all just part of what I would consider the greatest modern horror legacy since probably John Carpenter, since John Carpenter's run of Assault on Precinct 13 until In the Mouth of Madness. No other person working in horror has had this much of a streak. The only other person in modern horror that really gives Mike Flanagan a run is somebody who we've talked about on this channel a lot, and that's really James Wan. James Wan has made franchises, The Conjuring, Insidious, Saw, and he knows how to make horror movies that make money and generate interest. Mike Flanagan knows how to make amazing films that just so happen to be in the horror genre. Speaking of genre, Pete and I have a great interview coming up very soon, later this week, with writer, screenwriter, and son of legendary Joe R. Lansdale. We have a great interview with Keith Lansdale. He was a co-writer on the film The Pale Door, as well as the writer of the film Christmas with the Dead, based on a story that his dad wrote. We have a great interview with him coming up later this week. Pete interviewed Joe Lansdale on this channel. Pete and I had a great interview with Josh Malerman of Bird Box up on the channel. And next week, we are going to be interviewing an old friend to the channel, David Weiner, the director of In Search of Darkness 1 and 2, and soon to be In Search of Darkness 3, as well as In Search of Tomorrow, about 80s science fiction. So all of that is coming up very soon. Plus, we are getting into the Halloween franchise. Pete and Sherry are going to be reviewing the OG 1978 classic from John Carpenter. Charlotte and I are going to be talking about Halloween 2. I'm going to be introducing her to that very soon. And David Weiner is going to talk with us about the 80s Halloween movies from parts 2 to 5. So that should be fun as well. So a lot more coming up on the channel. Go to cod-tet19.net and get yourself an awesome Kate Siegel Rules shirt, because she does. She's awesome. This show is awesome. Mike Flanagan is awesome. And you guys are awesome. Thank you for hanging out with us. Go watch Midnight Mass on Netflix. It is that good. Have a great night.